Hello, welcome to Wilson's Barbecue. In this video I'm going to be cooking up a UK grass-fed brisket. So last week someone asked me for my advice on selecting a brisket and asked whether I'd ever had this specific brisket, and the answer to that was no, I hadn't. So I wasn't really able to help them with it, but I thought in my quest to find good high quality UK grass-fed briskets for £35, I may as well give it a go. So here it is, it's 2.67 kilograms. It's from Swaledale Foods, Swaledale Butchers, and it says smoking brisket, grass-fed, native breed, dry aged. So as I say, it's pretty small, pretty lean looking through the package, but let's get it open and see what we're working with. Smells good, smells like grass-fed beef. Right, okay. Looking very, very lean. So this is the point muscle, runs all the way along here. This is the flat, probably not what you're used to if you're in the US and you're used to cooking USDA, but this would be the decal right under here. So it's looking pretty unusual. Probably not gonna need to trim too much of it. There's a big fat chunk here. I'll trim that down a little bit. This is that heel fat, and get rid of that. May shape it up a little bit. A couple of pointy edges that are kind of hanging out there, then so just kind of rounding it out a little bit. So as you can see, that is the lean. There is not a lot of fat going on in there at all. Before anyone says if you know how to cook it, you can cook any barbecue piece of meat, and barbecue is all about taking bad cuts and turning them into great barbecue. But the fact is, if the fat isn't there to begin with, there's no fat that we can really look after and care for, so you're just kind of working with what you've got, unless you inject it, of course, but I'm not really into that. But yeah, that's what we're working with, so let's get it seasoned up. So I'm just going to be using a pretty simple salt, pepper, garlic, a few extra things. So we got this rubbed up. We're going to put it onto a rack on top of a tray into the fridge overnight. I'm going to be cooking this on the PK300 tomorrow, which I picked up from Pro Smoke Barbecue. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm working from home tomorrow. I don't have time to watch the offset. And with the PK, I can just throw this on in the morning, put some wood on, and it's going to cook pretty steady all day. So it is nice and early the next morning. As we're cooking in a relatively small space where the meat is close to the radiant heat of the coals, I'm putting in a makeshift foil baffle just to block some of that direct heat. Not essential, but it might help to prevent some crusty or burnt edges. I'm using a few small chunks of post oak, which I picked up from Pro Smoke Barbecue, link below. And from there we're going to be cooking at about 240 Fahrenheit or 115 C, a little lower than I normally would, but again, we're in a pretty small space. We're not going to be doing much more once we set our vents to hit that 230 temp. The PK will comfortably do the rest while I work from my home office. So we have been cooking for about 5 hours, and the brisket is looking like it's got a nice bark. The small amount of fat has rendered nicely and seem to have quite a nice amount of natural tallow in the drip tray. So what I'm going to do is wrap this up in butcher paper. Don't want to take it much further because I don't want to dry it out too much. Wrap it up in butcher paper and put it back in and cook it until it's nice and tender. And we'll probably let this cook for another 3, maybe 4 hours before we start probing it. And I'm cooking about pushing towards 275 at this point. Now it's wrapped, not worried about it burning. So check in 3-4 hours, checking for tenderness. Right, so this has been in for exactly 7.5 hours. It was probing pretty damn close to tender about 25 minutes ago. That's feeling pretty good. This is done. It's been 7.5 hours total. This is going to come off and just rest. So this is going to rest on this tray for probably an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, until it comes down to around 145 Fahrenheit internal, and then we'll be ready to slice into it.
Who wants a grass-fed brisket? You do!
So this has been resting for about an hour and a half. It's at a pretty good eating temperature of 150 Fahrenheit. So we're going to open it up, cut into it, and see how we did. And we added that extra tallow that had fallen into the drip pan. It's not actually looking too bad. Drip some of that tallow from the wrap on there. And it's looking good. I don't expect any of this added fat added on top is going to make the internal juicy. Obviously, that's not how it works, but it makes it kind of look nice. As you can see, we've got the flat muscle here, and then we've got the point muscle which is running this way, kind of on this end, but we've got a load of flat muscle under here as well. We'll cut into the flat and hopefully it doesn't look too dry, we'll see. Doesn't look too bad. A lot of that moisture that's on there is kind of dripped down from the tallow that I kind of dropped on top of it, but it pulls apart nicely. That's not looking too bad. Obviously a lot of that moisture again is from the tallow that I added on top, and also from my hands, but you can see that it's not completely dried out. It's looking okay. So getting to the point now. See, there's not a ton of fat in between the meat fibers, but it's not completely dried out. So if you take a slice and try not to allow some of that fat to drip. I'm not going to add any fat with my hand. We'll just see how lean it really is. That's not actually too bad. So it didn't turn out half as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was looking pretty lean to start with, but it came out okay. I'll just take a small slice out of here. You see it's pretty tender. Fat's rendered nicely. It's not completely dry considering the lack of intramuscular fat that was there at the beginning, but kind of hanging under its own weight. It pulls apart nice and easily. Taste wise, really good salt and pepper levels on there. When you add that grass-fed flavor with lots of smoke, salt and all that pepper, can't beat it. It's obviously not for everyone. If you live in the US or somewhere that has heavily grain-fed beef, this might be too floral for you. So there we go, that's a brisket cooked on the PK300. You can pick that PK300 up from Pro Smoke Barbecue. There's a link in the description below. Overall, happy with it. I definitely recommend it. If you're looking to just get into cooking briskets, this is a real cheap way to do it. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel. If you want to see more videos like this, go follow me on Instagram, drop a comment below, give me a like, it really, really helps. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks for another video. Paul?